Hi, my name is Mark Kelly. I'm co-host of The Fifth Estate, and welcome to CBC Radio-Canada's 5th annual public meeting, live from the Glenn Gould Studio at the Canadian Broadcasting Centre in Toronto, Ontario. I'd like to welcome people across Canada tuning in live on the web and Twitter here in Toronto.
Bonjour, mon nom est Catherine Lafrance. Je suis animatrice du téléjournal Ontario Édition Weekend.
Ontario Edition Weekend, and I'd like to welcome all the participants online and in the Glenn Gould Studio to our annual public meeting. I'd also like to mention the presence of members of our Board of Directors of CBC Radio-Canada, as well as members of the senior executive team who are here in the room and also
with
on
us
the
today,
web.
some of your favorite CBC and Radio-Canada hosts. They will join us in the second half of the event today for a discussion on how radio is changing and how new technology is making it easier for Canadians to talk to one another. And we really want to pick up on that because it's very fitting that CBC Radio-Canada is holding its annual public meeting on this, which is, of course, Canadian Citizenship Week, which is held from the 21st to the 27th of October. And as you know, CBC Radio-Canada continues to promote and share stories of new Canadians and those whose families have been here for generations. And this week is an opportunity for all of us to reflect on our citizenship and what it means to be Canadian and how we engage in society both here and away as Canadians.
Une période de questions suivra la discussion du panel. Nous accepterons les questions en direct
We'll
de la
accept
salle,
questions
par
live
courriel,
in the
sur
room,
Twitter également.
by email,
Pour ceux
also
d'entre
on
vous,
Twitter.
qui
And
sont
for
en ligne,
those
je
of
vous
you
invite
who
à
are
envoyer vos
online,
questions
please send your
immédiatement.
questions right
Maintenant,
away.
allez
Right
simplement
away,
au
just
champ de
go
questions dans
to
votre
the
lecteur
question
web pour
field
nous les
in your
envoyer.
web player
Pour
to
ceux
send us
d'entre vous
your
qui seront
questions.
sur
For those of
Twitter,
you who are on
utilisez le
Twitter,
mot-clé
use the
RCAPA.
hashtag
For those of you
CBCAPM.
online, I invite you to start sending in your questions right away. Simply go to the question field in your web player to send us your questions. And for those of you on Twitter, use the hashtag CBCAPM. All right, here we go. Now let's please welcome Rémi Racine. He's chair of CBC Radio-Canada's Board of Directors. Rémi.
Hello, everyone. Whether you're here in the Glenn Gould Studio at the Toronto Broadcasting Centre or following us on the web or Twitter, welcome to CBC Radio-Canada 5th Annual Public Meeting. It's been a busy year for the Board of Directors. Over the past few months, we've said goodbye to colleagues who've completed their terms and welcomed some new directors to the board. Here with me in Toronto are Vivian Berkovich and Ted Boyd. Others are watching the broadcast live right now. One thing is certain, the new board members, like the one they replaced, are strongly committed to CBC Radio-Canada. The board takes its responsibility for ensuring the corporation good governance very seriously. Mais nous sommes conscients que tous les radiodiffuseurs publics dans le monde sont aux prises avec des questions comme celle de la pertinence, du caractère distinctif de leur offre, de leur financement et de leur contenu. Grâce à son plan stratégique quinquennal pour 2015, CBC Radio-Canada devient plus numérique, plus présent dans les régions et encore plus canadienne. Le Conseil a approuvé ce plan en 2011 et suit de très près le progrès de la compagnie à ce chapitre, et nous en sommes très fiers. Aujourd'hui, alors que nous nous trouvons à mi-chemin dans la mise en œuvre du plan, il est temps de regarder encore plus loin. Le Conseil est responsable de la préparation, d'approuver la préparation du prochain plan stratégique. Le comité de planification stratégique, sous le leadership de Ted Boyd, reçoit les rapports d'étape de la direction, les commente, les améliore aux besoins et transmet la rétroaction du Conseil à la haute direction. Ces échanges ont pour objectif d'appuyer l'équipe de la haute direction dans la conception d'une orientation future pour la radiodiffuseur public qui sera à la fois convaincante et passionnante pour le public canadien. All the while, we must never lose sight of the fact that if the public broadcaster is to continue serving Canadians in 2020, 2030, or 2050 or beyond, we must be sensitive to the importance of reflecting a diversity of voices and managing public funds effectively and responsibly. That's why the annual public meeting is an important exercise for the CBC Radio-Canada board. It's all about transparency. It's an important opportunity for Canadians to ask questions and share their expectation for the future of CBC Radio-Canada. I will now turn this thing over to Hubert Lacroix, the President and CEO. Hubert?
Merci. Morning, everyone. Bonjour à vous tous. So let me start by playing you something.
This is CBC News.
Le radio-journal de Radio-Canada.
What did you think of when you heard those sounds? For me, those sounds are familiar, they're safe, but they're attention-grabbing. They are telling me that something important is about to happen, and they force me to pause. Feelings like these are the product of a long-standing relationship with Canadians, one that is based on integrity, quality, and trust, and built throughout the delivery of our various services. En tant que radiodiffuseur public du Canada,
as Canada's public broadcaster, we're more than just a media company.
Nous faisons partie
We're part
des
of the
communautés que nous
communities we
servons.
serve.
Et nous croyons
And
que
we
le rôle
believe we
que nous
have
jouerons
a
demain
role to play
est aussi important
as
que le rôle que nous avons
big
joué
a
dans le
part in
passé.
Canada's future as
Pourquoi,
we've played
au
in its
printemps
past.
dernier,
And that's why this
nous avons
past
lancé une
spring,
conversation à
we
l'échelle
set
du
out
pays
to engage
à
people
propos du
across the country
150e
about the
anniversaire de la
150th
Confédération
anniversary of
que nous
Confederation
fêterons en
coming up
2017.
in 2017.
En partenariat avec
We
Via Rail
partnered with Via Rail
et les fondations
and the
communautaires du
Community
Canada, nous
Foundations
avons
of
organisé
Canada
12
to set up
conférences à travers le
conferences,
pays.
12 conferences in every province.
Nous voulions offrir au
Across the
Canada
country. We wanted to offer
un espace
Canada
public
a
où les
public
Canadiens
space where
pourraient se
Canadians
rassembler
could meet, could
partager
gather,
leurs
and
histoires
share their stories,
et commencer à planifier
and begin
des
planning
activités pour
activities
célébrer
to
le
celebrate this
150e.
important
En
milestone,
tout,
the 150th.
1200 délégués des communautés ont participé aux
1,200
rencontres
community
et ont écouté
delegates attended these
90
conferences,
conférenciers
and they listened to
présenter leur
90
vision
speakers
du
who
pays.
talked about their vision for the country.
CBC Radio-Canada a donc
CBC
tissé des liens,
Radio-Canada
facilité les
connected
rencontres,
people, made it
accéléré les
easier
idées.
for them to meet
Voilà ce que nous
and
faisons
talk
et ce
about
que
their
nous faisons
ideas.
très bien.
This is what we do, and we do it well.
Format of today's annual public meeting is a fitting reminder of how much our world has changed. Let's take radio, for example, the theme of today's panel discussion. It used to be seen as a one-way source of information. Well, radio is much more than that today. It's evolved into a two-way channel for discussion and dialogue. From Cross-Country Checkup to Espace Music's webpage, the audience is as much part of the broadcast as the host himself. New digital tools allow us to engage with Canadians in real time, and they complement and enhance the broadcast in ways that we have never imagined before. And this is resonating with our audiences. Here are some of our recent results. CBC Radio-Canada, on the CBC Radio side, had an exceptionally strong audience performance last year, with a combined share of 15.3. This was the highest ever fall share for CBC Radio 1 and the highest fall share for CBC Radio 2 since 2008. And get this, last year, 20 of 23 of our local CBC Radio 1 morning shows placed in the top 3, with 12 of them at number 1. Ici, Radio-Canada Première et Espace Musique ont aussi connu une année
Ici, Radio-Canada
exceptionnelle,
Première and
avec des
Espace
parts
Music also
d'écoute
had a banner
combinées de
year with combined shares
18,5%,
at
bien
18.5%,
supérieures à
well
notre cible de
exceeding
16%.
the target of 16%.
So Strategy 2015 has made us more digital, and changes in how we deliver audio programming are a big part of that shift. Think espace.mu, cbcmusic.ca, smartphone apps, live streaming, podcasts, all of that available all the time. Vous conclurez donc avec nous que nous nous transformons. Nous remettons sans cesse en cause le statu quo. Nous cherchons à créer une relation personnelle et intime avec chacun de nos auditeurs. And you don't have to look any further than our 5 hosts today participating in our panel. They do just that. They look to create relationships. And a few minutes ago, we realized that they represent 68 years of CBC Radio-Canada experience. First, Steve Patterson and the Debaters. His radio show, which at one time also was a TV program, is produced in communities across the country. I attended a number of his tapings, and in particular the one he did at Bishop's University last year. And I saw again, firsthand, the connection, the dynamic connection between Steve, the content of the show, and the live audience. And by the way, you should know that Steve just won, again for the second time, Best Male Stand-Up at the Canadian Comedy Awards. Anna Maria Tremonti and The Current. Well, they're celebrating their 11th year on air, and The Current was awarded in 2012 the Canadian Journalism Foundation Excellence in Journalism Award in the large national media category, and again was a finalist in June 2013. Rebecca McConnell est à l'image de notre univers
is a prime example of our multi-platform universe. I believe that she is a multi-platform person. For the past 4 years, she's hosted the musical variety show Studio 12, which is broadcast on TV, radio, and web platforms. She's also a regular guest on ici Radio-Canada Première and CBC Radio. And in addition to that, she's the host of Circuit Makonnen on Espace Musique.
Matt Galloway is the host of Metro Morning on CBC Radio 1, Toronto's top-rated morning show. But you also saw Matt on The National do a great piece on a local school promoting diversity. By the way, in 2012, he was given the Excellence in Community Service Award for addressing issues confronting diverse communities. I also understand that it was your birthday yesterday, Matt. Congratulations and happy belated birthday. Enfin, Jean-Sébastien Bernatchez, animateur de l'Heure du Monde et chroniqueur à C'est pas trop tôt sur ici Radio-Canada Première,
host of l'Heure du Monde et C'est pas trop tôt on ici Radio-Canada Première, is a regular on all our digital platforms. He constantly uses Twitter to exchange with listeners on economic news.
Alors, leur contribution à notre
their
programmation est un
contribution
bon
to our
exemple
content is a
de
great
notre
example
évolution
of our
et de
evolution
notre désir de
and
créer
our
des liens intimes
desire
et personnels
to create a
avec nos
personal
auditoires.
contact
J'en suis
with
très
our
fier.
listeners. I'm very proud of that.
I'm also very proud of the fact that the Olympics will be returning to CBC Radio-Canada in February. And as the public broadcaster, you know that we will bring you more than just the medal count or the competitions themselves. Like we did in Beijing, we will bring you perspective and stories from Russia to ensure that Canadians understand the social, economic, and cultural context in which the games are being held. And true to our mandate, we will inform and enlighten as well as entertain. Before I continue, I want to share a video with you of what you should be expecting in February.
No one gets you closer to the Olympics than CBC Radio-Canada.
It's going to be amazing to show Canada who I am.
Personne ne vous rapproche autant des Jeux Olympiques que CBC Radio-Canada.
Je sais que je peux être sur le podium, que je peux rivaliser avec les meilleurs. Si tu mets la volonté, si tu mets l'effort, la machine, c'est toi qui performe, puis c'est toi qui vas réussir ce que tu veux faire.
we are proud to be the official broadcaster of Sochi 2014.
Nous sommes fiers d'être le diffuseur officiel de Sochi 2014.
And I love everything that Canada represents. So it's just this amazing opportunity and privilege for me to be able to do something that I love and to do it for my country.
CBC Radio Canada celebrates the Olympics by bringing Canadians together from coast to coast to coast.
CBC Radio-Canada célèbre les Jeux olympiques en rapprochant les Canadiens de toutes les régions au pays. Pour tout voir et savoir, de minute en minute, vous pouvez compter sur la couverture complète de Sochi 2014 sur toutes les plateformes de CBC Radio-Canada.
Quand on voit le Canada rentrer dans le stade olympique, on voit une personne, on voit un peuple uni. L'énergie qui nous transporte dans le stade, c'est l'énergie qui nous transporte à chaque jeu.
Get to know our athletes as they share their inspirational stories.
When I think ahead to Sochi, I picture a great team, not just my own, but all the athletes that are competing there.
J'ai gagné le championnat du monde 3 fois et ma personnalité a vraiment développé. J'ai plus de confiance. Je suis capable d'avoir une très bonne vie sur la glace et c'est cet élément qui me sépare des autres patineurs.
Il va falloir que je fasse tout en mon pouvoir pour être prêt en haut de cette piste-là. C'est ce qui fait ma détermination. J'ai toujours été la personne qui a travaillé excessivement fort. Tant aussi longtemps que je vais skier, pour moi, être sur une piste, j'ai l'intention d'être le meilleur au monde à chaque jour.
Feeling the strength of everyone and the encouragement of everyone and being on such a great team, that'll just feel so amazing for me.
Connect with CBC Radio Canada for the biggest Olympic stories, whenever and wherever you want them.
En ligne, sur Facebook et sur Twitter, engagez la conversation avec CBC Radio-Canada en route vers Sochi 2014.
Join us as we take you to Sochi 2014.
Joignez-vous à nous en route vers Sochi 2014.
Pretty exciting stuff. So time now for Suzanne Morris, our CFO, and an update on our financial picture. Suzanne.
Merci, Hubert. Hello, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm pleased to be here today to provide you with a summary of the corporation's financial health and direction. Our annual report was provided to government on June 30th as required. We've not yet made it public, but we'll do so once it's tabled in the House. So let's start with fiscal 2012-2013. Revenues were lower for the year than in 2011-2012, following the hockey lockout. However, hockey returned stronger than ever with robust viewership and strong hockey revenues. Our expenses for last year were down, and that reflected a number of factors. We had lower production costs and spending on sports rights during the NHL lockout, and we implemented operating cost reductions across the corporation, and that was in response to Federal Budget 2012 and to reductions in the local Programming Improvement Fund. Overall, through the sound management of our expenses, we achieved a modest increase in our net results for 2012-2013. Passons maintenant à l'exercice en cours.
Now, turning to this year and results for our first quarter, these results and our financial situation going forward reflect the corporation's performance 1 year after beginning to deal with $200 million in financial pressures. This includes reductions to our appropriations as part of Budget 2012. For the first quarter of 2013-14, results on a current operating basis were close to break-even. Overall, revenue increased by almost 1%. Advertising revenue was higher as a result of strong hockey audiences, as previously mentioned. We also implemented new revenue-generating initiatives. Expenses were lower by 11% as expected, following our budget reductions.
Thanks to careful management, we have plans in place to ensure that CBC Radio-Canada continues to be positioned to deliver on its mandate and on our objectives under Strategy 2015. To date, we're on track to meet our financial plans for the year. Ongoing success, however, will depend on sustainable funding, on the strength of the advertising market, and on the performance of our overall revenues. Looking ahead to the second quarter and the balance of the year, we currently expect to achieve our overall revenue targets with programming that will include, of course, the Sochi Winter Olympic Games. We look forward to once again bringing the Olympic Games home to Canadians. We'll also continue to closely monitor key developments. This includes ongoing discussions with the NHL in the interest of renewing our broadcast rights contracts, which ends in June of 2014. In our 61st year, Hockey Night in Canada continues to connect Canadians from coast to coast to coast on a topic that we're all passionate about. And it's our objective to keep this tradition alive. Enfin, les Canadiens auront bientôt accès à
Finally, Canadians
plus
will
complète
soon
sur
be
nos
able to
résultats
access
financiers
more fulsome
et sur les
information
indicateurs de
on
rendement
our
pour
financial
l'exercice
results
2012-2013
and
lorsque notre
performance
rapport annuel
indicator
sera
for
publié cet automne.
2012-13 when our annual
rapports
report is
annuels
published
et
this fall.
trimestriels
Past
sont
annual
toujours
and quarterly
accessibles
reports are
sur notre
always
site web.
available on our website.
Thank you, and back to you, Hubert.
Merci, Suzanne.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Alors, culture canadienne,
Canadian culture,
démocratie canadienne,
Canadian democracy,
expérience
the
canadienne.
Canadian experience.
Aucun de ces concepts
None of these
ne découle
concepts
d'un
are
processus
top-down.
hiérarchisé. C'est plutôt le fruit de la
They are
collaboration,
the product
du
of
dialogue,
collaboration, dialogue,
interaction,
interaction.
d'échanges constants, passionnés
They are the product of
et complets
citizens
d'idées, de valeurs et de
passionately
rêves entre
exchanging
citoyens.
ideas,
Nous
values, and
voulons
dreams.
être
We
l'endroit
want to be the
où
place
ces
where
conversations
those
se
exchanges
déroulent.
happen.
So let's have fun. Let's have a great session today. Let's dream big. Let's enjoy. But above all, let's stay connected. Thank you.
Merci Hubert. Alors,
Thank
voilà
you,
qui met fin à
Hubert,
la
and
première
this is
partie
the
de
end
notre
of the
assemblée
first part of our
publique
annual
annuelle.
public meeting.
Okay, now Hubert was saying backstage, he said, I'm not convinced, he admitted to us in a moment of candor, that all of you came today to listen to our annual report, though it was delivered with style and aplomb, and I applaud you for that. But apparently some of you may have come today to meet some of our radio panelists. And it is a great opportunity, and I certainly applaud the organizers of this meeting, to bring you these great radio talents today so you can have a chance to see them in the flesh and hear them as we have a great panel discussion and learn some of their insights about how they see the future of radio in this building. So it is my honor to be able to bring them up on stage. Let's start with the birthday boy, Matt Galloway. He's the host of Metro Morning, CBC Radio on 99.1 FM, the top-rated morning radio program in Toronto. Mr. Galloway, please take your seat.
Rebecca McConnell, comme Hubert l'a mentionné déjà, mais ça vaut le coup de répéter un petit peu parce qu'elle a une feuille de route fort intéressante. Elle anime Circuit McConnell
so many exciting things. She hosts Circuit McConnell every day from 8:30 to noon on Espace Musique in the Montreal region. She's often heard on shows on ici Radio-Canada Première and CBC Radio. We've also been able to see her on Guide Resto Voir, Musicographie, Départ Musique Plus, and C'est juste de la télé. Let's welcome Rebecca.
Did we mention you're supposed to turn off your phones?
I think so. Something like that.
I thought we did.
Yeah, I thought we did.
I heard that. Okay, now to the man who's caught every week in the comedy crossfire, Steve Patterson. You've heard him on The Debaters. Guy does a wonderful job on that program. Also stands up in front of crowds and delivers great comedy. Great to have you here with us today, Steve Patterson. You see, that kind of comedy does not work on radio. The pratfall. Anna Maria Tremonti has been a host of CBC Radio 1's The Current since it first burst onto the airwaves in November 2002. She brings a mix of hard-edged journalism and hard-won empathy to a 90-minute program that tackles everything from politics of the day to the changes that affect our society to the stories of individuals whose personal journeys and traumas affect us all. Anna Maria.
Jean-Sébastien Bernatchez anime depuis cet
Since
automne
this fall, Jean-Sébastien Bernatchez has been hosting L'Heure du Monde from 6 to 7 on ici Radio-Canada Première, and he's a regular on a show in Montreal, C'est pas trop tôt. Previously, he hosted Classe économique starting in 2009. Let's welcome Jean-Sébastien.
Chers collègues, soyez
Dear
les bienvenus
colleagues,
parmi nous aujourd'hui.
welcome to today's meeting.
Okay, so we've got through the formalities. Everyone's settling in, and every year, as part of this annual public meeting, there's a discussion led by some of our CBC and Radio-Canada personalities. These exchanges provide an opportunity to get a glimpse of the work that they do. And in the past, we've had fascinating discussions, often with foreign correspondents who've come up here or other TV reporters. And I think it's great today that we have the focus on radio. Today's topic is today's radio broadening our conversations. Radio is, of course, changing, and hear how new technology is enriching today's conversation.
La radio fait partie de CBC
Radio has
Radio-Canada
been part of CBC Radio-Canada since it began, bringing together Canadians from sea to sea, and we have a very faithful group of listeners. However, traditional radio is changing, the media landscape is evolving, and we have to be able to offer Canadians what they want, the way they want it, and of course, when they want it.
Okay, so let's have a look at the following video. Oh, it's sort of a cross-media thing here. We're going to set up a radio discussion by watching a video. Take it away.
Why not?
This is CBC Radio 1.
Welcome to Cross Country Checkup. Works and Forks.
Writers and Company.
I'm Stuart McLean. This is the Vinyl Cafe.
Hello, Canada.
Ici Radio-Canada, Première.
Énergie, curiosité, convivialité.
Il va aussi y avoir la force de l'information du réseau de Radio-Canada.
CBC Radio-Canada has connected Canadians from coast to coast to coast for over 75 years.
I'm Rex Murphy. This is Cross Country Checkup. Watch your
greetings from St. Paul. I'm on a BlackBerry here.
Canada lives here. Depuis plus de 75 ans, CBC et Radio-Canada tissent des liens entre les Canadiens de tout le pays.
CBC Radio 1
et ici Radio-Canada Première.
A strong presence in all regions that fosters the national conversation so we can get to know each other better.
I'm Allison Smith. This is The World at 6.
Good morning and welcome to The Current. I'm Anna Maria Tremonti.
This is Metro Morning on CBC Radio 1. My name's Matt Galloway. What happens now in Syria?
CBC Radio 2.
I'm Rich Turfry. CBC Radio 2 Drive.
And Espace Musique gives listeners a deeper music experience with a variety of music for every mood, from adult alternative to jazz and classical.
Espace Musique et CBC Radio 2 offrent aux auditeurs une expérience musicale plus profonde, avec une variété de genres pour toutes les humeurs, de la musique alternative pour adultes au jazz, en passant par la musique classique.
From the early days, CBC Radio-Canada paved the way in broadcasting and played a unique role in sharing personal experiences, bringing Canadians closer together. Now, CBC Radio 1 and ici Radio-Canada Première are available everywhere you want them, whenever you want them.
Vous pouvez les écouter sur votre radio ou en ligne, ou quand vous vous déplacez sur votre appareil mobile ou sous la forme de balado-diffusion. Vous pouvez aussi visiter cbcmusic.ca et espace.mu et programmer votre propre liste de diffusion, et tout cela gratuitement.
CBC Music. Get it at home, get it on the go, get it anywhere.
Le jazz, je pourrais vous en
Pour
parler.
moi, la musique...
Moi, je pense que peu importe. Moi, la musique...
CBC Radio-Canada, le seul radiodiffuseur national qui rassemble tous les Canadiens.
Constantly evolving and moving forward with programming that speaks to every region across the country and around the world. CBC Radio, the future of radio.
Radio-Canada, l'avenir de la radio.
we've clearly got a lot to brag about. That's fantastic, and it's great to see. And certainly from an insider's perspective here at the CBC, I can tell you firsthand how CBC Radio and the resurgence of it. And Hubert was mentioning some of the numbers here, and the control that they have of so many markets has certainly been a point of pride for all of us working here at CBC, even if we work on the dark side like me in television. But Anna Marie, and that's what I want to start with you, because you and I, we do share that. I started my career at CBC Radio, CBC in radio was back in 1990. You started in radio. You went to the dark side with me on TV for a while. Now you're back to the light of radio. And as we look at the way that the radio is evolving and connecting with Canadians, how do you see the difference between radio and TV and the impact that it has on audiences?
I think not to take anything away from TV, radio, for me as trying to follow stories, radio allows me to move quickly. You can literally turn on a dime with radio. Radio, I think, it's an old medium that is new again. It's going through a renaissance, and we're all lucky to be part of it right now. And you can have a conversation. You talk about the cold medium of TV and the hot medium of radio. And so when people are listening to you and they're part of your program, they feel like they're part of it. And they're not stepping back and watching it, they're literally engulfed by the sound. And in a funny way, when you listen to radio, you see it. But you see it in your mind, and so it forces you into a level of creativity, even as you listen to a discussion and get taken somewhere. So it's a wonderful medium, and you will not die of hairspray lung in radio.
Thanks for that.
C'est intéressant, Anna Maria qui dit c'est un
It's
vieux médium, mais
interesting.
qui est
Anna Maria
nouveau,
was saying this is an
encore une
old
fois, ou une
medium,
nouvelle
but it's
fois, c'est
new
vrai.
again.
Et notamment
And
parce
it's
qu'il y a toutes
true.
sortes de changements
In particular,
technologiques.
because there are a lot of technological changes.
Est-ce que la radio se
Jean-Sébastien,
renouvelle? Quel est le
is
futur de
radio
la radio?
being renewed?
Est-ce
What's
qu'elle
the future of
prospère
radio?
dans
Is it
ces nouvelles
thriving
technologies?
with these
Le
new
nouveau
technologies,
paysage
this
médiatique
new
qui est le
media
nôtre
landscape that we live in now? This is the interesting theme. Is it thriving? Is radio thriving? I cover economic news. And if this meeting today were an annual shareholders meeting of a commercial radio station, if you're asking me, is it thriving? I would try to tell you, are we making a profit? Does our radio bring in profits? And this brings it back to the very heart of public radio. And Radio 1, Espace Musique, Radio-Canada, Radio-Canada Première. The wealth, the prosperity of our radio can be measured through the wealth of programming that we have, the conversation that we establish between those who listen to us. And this brings me back to the context of your question. In the universe of new technologies, I believe that the conversation is even more interesting and even more dynamic thanks to new technologies. Social networks enable us to talk live with our listeners. Podcasting too was like the VCR for TV 30 years ago. You have access to radio content when you're interested in listening to it. In the past, if you missed l'heure du monde or classe économique, well, it was over. But now you can subscribe to a podcast, have it on your radio, listen to it while you're driving down the highway, listen to it on the subway. I think it's thriving even more today.
And I want to pick up on what Jean-Sébastien is saying with you, Matt. In television, we're looking over at what's happening on the internet as it's a huge threat to what we do. People are turning towards YouTube to get their information rather than turning to a nightly newscast. In the print medium, of course, they're seeing the same thing. The newspapers, losing their audiences to what's happening online. I want to get your perspective, though, from how the internet and all that social media, does it compete with you? Is it a challenge to you? Or is it, as Jean-Sébastien is mentioning here, enhancing a bit of what you can do?
I think you have to be smart enough to understand that it is, and be humble enough to understand that it is competition. People can listen to anything in the morning. That they choose to listen to a program that I host is humbling and extraordinary and overwhelming. But it's one thing that they could listen to. They could listen to a number of radio stations. They could listen to the podcasts you were talking about. They could listen to satellite radio. They could listen to nothing at all. So you have to create things that will, in that space, compete, and in that space be relevant and important and must-hear radio. at the same time, you have to not fear that technology. Our program uses things like Twitter and Facebook as the show is going out on the air. So Hubert was talking about radio used to be a conversation. There would be your announcer at the microphone and the audience, and the voice would come out through the radio and that would be it. We now have this opportunity to communicate with people, not just one-to-one, not just two-to-one, but our show is like this live conversation where 30 or 40 people at the same time are talking about things that we're talking about, that are carrying on their own conversations about something that we've started. And if you can figure out a way to harness that technology and enhance the conversation so that, yes, when we're on the air from 5:30 to 8:30, it's this lively discussion. But when we go off the air and when the city really starts to thrive and something happens at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we can still be part of that discussion. I can be involved in that, other people can be involved in it, and it takes on a life of its own. We have a thing, just because I ride my bicycle to work in the morning, where we started giving bike reports on the radio. We have traffic reports, we have weather reports. We thought, what if we, and this came from a listener, what if we gave bike reports, a cycling report, and it lived online? So people could crowdsource that information, and on Twitter, there's this hashtag, MMBike, that now exists outside of the show. And it's the place that people go to find out whether this road is blocked, whether it's going to rain and you're going to need, pants that repel water at the end of the day, whether your socks are going to get soaked, or whether it's a beautiful day and you know what, you're tired and lazy, but you should get out and ride your bike to work. That has nothing to do with us other than we created it and sort of launched it into the ether. And that, to me, is kind of the power of technology on a show like ours. We're a radio program. We're not broadcasting on the internet, but in a way, you can use that to be broadcasting on the internet at the same time.
Mark vient de le dire en télévision, on sent très bien les nouvelles technologies, Internet, c'est une menace finalement, une menace en termes de code d'écoute notamment. Et il faudra que la télévision s'adapte à ça et elle cherche à le faire. La radio cherche à s'adapter aussi, mais on n'a pas l'impression, on a moins l'impression que c'est une menace. Et Matt vient de le dire, il y a tout un espace qui est créé pour la discussion en radio. Rebecca, est-ce que la radio change? Est-ce que la radio doit s'adapter aux nouvelles technologies?
Does it have to adapt to new technologies?
Surtout pessimiste, mais à dire que je suis réaliste et à penser que oui, c'est une menace, puis comment on peut faire. J'avais pas l'impression que la radio prospérait, j'ai l'impression que la radio survit, mais je fais la nuance. Tant qu'il y a un noyau, un bassin de fidèles auditeurs, et c'est pas nécessairement une génération vieillissante, mais qui existe, qui en a un peu rien à cirer des réseaux sociaux ou de découvrir la musique ailleurs en écoutant la radio ou de s'informer en écoutant le radio-journal, mais ce bassin, ce noyau dur-là, donc il y a encore des rendez-vous télévisuels ou radiophoniques qui lisent le journal le matin.
Who listen to the radio, who read the newspaper in the morning. I think that radio will survive. But since radio came into the digital age, I think it's really moving forward. We can't put our heads in the sand. We can't stop the movement. And we're adapting, and I think it's fabulous because the digital age is synonymous with freedom for you, for the listeners. As we've heard very often, as Hubert said, there's this new generation. It's a generational challenge. There's a new generation representing new clients for us, and they don't want to be told how, when they're going to listen, where, how. They decide how they're going to consume radio. They want to hear webcasts. This is new. We have a lot of it on Espace Musique. But if they just want a mix of music, songs according to themes, without any spoken content, that's available too. Radio is also broadcast on the internet. I get tweets and emails from people who are listening to me in Argentina, people listening in Sudbury, people listening in Europe. I'm always surprised to get emails from abroad. And I realize now, no, you don't have to be in Montreal, even though I'm broadcast just in Montreal, but I'm heard around the world. And it's identification. It's a hot medium. You can identify with blogs, with podcasts, with web programs and social networks. For me, I came to Radio-Canada in 2008, and I got involved in Twitter in 2009, and now I have 25,000 followers. And social networks, as Matt said, you can act as if they didn't exist, but I think they're very complementary complementary to my work, not just as a radio host, but my work as a journalist and a host. I use it as a news stream.
Personally, I don't follow TMZ. I don't care if you do, c'est le fun pour vous. Mais pour moi, je m'abonne au Parisien, au Monde, à l'Express, peu importe, au Washington Post, à CBC Music,
I'm
à des gens
subscribing
qui
to Washington Post, CBC Music, actors, comedians, politicians. And at 8:30 in the morning, I look at my Twitter stream, and half of what I say on the radio is what I saw on Twitter. Content will always be king, though, no matter what happens with new technologies.
Ça revient un peu au talent de la personne
always comes back to the talent of the person who's in front of the microphone, who has the privilege of being at the mic, and who has the privilege of talking and communicating things.
Okay, she's got a follow-up question. She's butting in line to me, but allez-y.
It's
interesting because we've been talking a lot about digital radio and new technologies, the internet, as if all of this were really new. But that's not really the case. And Rebecca would say to you, part of the population still reads the newspaper and listens to the programs at the time when they're broadcast, and that's fine. But do we know who is our target public now of these new technologies? People who are on social networks, people who are listening more by podcast. How old are they? Where are they from? Who are they? Do you have any feedback? Do you know who they are?
Qui veut répondre?
Who wants to answer?
Moi, je sais pas. Je sais que nos patrons, il y a des gens dans la boîte qui regardent ça. Ils font des études de marché.
Watch or who are doing market studies.
Mais je vais employer un véritable cliché là, en radio. Mais quand je parle à la radio, moi, je parle à une seule personne.
Speak on the radio,
Et j'espère que les gens qui nous écoutent ont l'impression que je ne parle qu'à eux personnellement, un peu comme s'ils avaient décroché le téléphone quand ça a sonné. Et allô, j'ai une histoire à te raconter.
I have a story to tell you.
Parce que j'entends énormément de versions contradictoires.
I hear a lot of contradictions out there. I hear
that
young people aren't on Twitter. And Twitter, in fact, is for press attachés, news junkies, journalists. That's what I'm hearing. Young people go on Facebook. Why do they go on Facebook? Not to follow a radio show. They go to Facebook to talk amongst themselves, to have fun amongst themselves. I know we have Facebook pages and they're doing well. The morning show, the afternoon show in Montreal have a lot of followers, as do the Twitter accounts. There are hosts and personalities who have 60,000, 80,000 followers on Twitter. I don't have that many yet. I don't know, though. I agree with what Matt was saying. There is competition, and what Rebecca said. But I would say that Rebecca, who at the first, in the beginning was pessimistic, showed through everything that she said that, in fact, she's optimistic. Things aren't going that badly when I listen to what she has to say. But for me, it's worse. My show is at 6 p.m., at the same time as The World at 6 on Radio 1. Not only can I say that social media is new media and internet is, they're all competing with me, they empty out my content because now
vous les avez sur votre téléphone cellulaire. Alors moi, si j'arrive à 6 heures
so if I come on
pour vous faire un bilan de la journée,
to talk to you about what's happened during the
vous allez
day,
aller ailleurs, vous allez
you'll
fermer
go
la radio,
elsewhere. You'll turn off the radio. You'll say, I've got it all on my tablet or on my phone. So we have to add something. We have to give meaning to this news. The news that you can read on your phone. Put the news in context. Tell stories. And ensure that the voices of the people in these stories are heard.
I want to pick up on a point, and it's something we talk about often in the media, which is know your audience. When I'm looking out at our audience that we have here at the Glenn Gould Studio here in Toronto today. And what's amazing is the age range, and I find that incredibly encouraging because, of course, we always like to see that sort of span, those demographics, young people especially who are coming out and really want to be part of the conversation and are connecting with us, and that's crucial for our future. But it's interesting, you know, here in this building, we always talk about CBC Radio as the senior service, because it is. But that can go the wrong way, and you can understand how that can sort of be twisted to say it was just for seniors. And certainly what we're hearing up here, that's not the case. But Steve, I want to ask you that there does seem to be this notion of nostalgia about radio, that I don't see the same thing for TV. And I wonder how much as much as there are these new technologies that we're talking about, how you have to know your audience and respect the fact that there is that nostalgia for radio that I don't think exists in TV.
Sorry, Mark, I'm just having your question translated back into French and then back into English. I just felt that was the politically correct way to do this. And on Channel 3 is the Debaters, which is playing right now on the East Coast.
He's not going to answer.
I mean, I've been doing the Debaters for 7 years now on the radio. We had a little stint on television, and what I can tell you the difference from my perspective as someone that's done a bit of both is you treasure radio. There's nowhere to hide in radio. The content, in my opinion, has to be stronger. The words have to be stronger because you can't rely on anything else around it. So I think the reason that more nostalgia would be created is because the content's better. There's more competition, of course, everywhere. I'm not sure that all the kids are on Facebook. I know I love Twitter as a joke writing exercise, and sure. And we get feedback all the time from people, and we're a show that airs weekly but tapes not weekly. And Hubert's been kind enough to come out to a lot of tapings. We have an immediate connection with our people. They'll let us know immediately if we've. It's a lot of grammar that I get corrected on. Thanks, listeners.
Oh yeah, CBC listeners and viewers are very good on the grammar front. I'm sure it's the same for Radio-Canada as well. You make a mistake, boom. Twitter is helpful for that too.
Et c'est très bien. C'est très bien comme ça.
They sometimes forget it's a joke. So, but a short answer to your question would be, I think nostalgia is created by quality content, and I think you have to have more quality in your words on radio than you do on television. With no offense to television, but we're
no offense
better.
Taken, but thank you.
All right.
But the amazing thing is you do see people who are listening to radio who've never listened to radio before now because of technology. So we have people who listen to our program who are all over the world, as you have, who are here, who are out running in the morning, who are on the streetcar, who are with their dog, who listen to us later on in the day because they're interested in the city that they're in, and who come from the entire swath of this city. I mean, I broadcast to a city that is incredibly multicultural, and part of our success is trying to figure out how to tell all of those stories at the same time, back to the city. And so we had an event in this building as part of Citizenship Week earlier this week in which there were new Canadians and people who were about to become Canadians. As of today, they were becoming Canadian citizens. And they were telling stories of how they were in Korea, in South Korea, listening to Metro Morning to learn English before they came here. That when they arrived and they were doing ESL classes, our program was played as a way, and this is again concerning given the grammar police, as a way to learn the language, but also learn the kind of informal customs of the city. And when you understand that audience is enormous and the potential is there, you can't be pessimistic at all. You have to be optimistic that if you can figure out the stories and you can figure out the content and you can figure out a way to reach people in a meaningful way, people will always give you their time if you can promise something and deliver on that promise. And that's what we try and do. And I think the result is success, but it also is just the strength of a medium that a lot of people thought would die on a vine and hasn't yet.
Anna-Marie?
I wonder, when we talk about social media and people who get so consumed by working through their communications through Twitter or Facebook or on their computers, and we also know that people can sometimes feel disconnected. And what radio does is it gives you that voice. No matter where you actually access it from, it's a human voice. And so it kind of transcends that disconnect. We both use the social media, but we then transcend that kind of thing. And we're talking about people hearing you from all over. I have to say I've lived in several countries for the CBC as a foreign correspondent, and I have to say our production values are really high. So suddenly the very thing that can hurt us, that anything is available anytime, anywhere, and you have all that competition, also helps us because we have a real tradition of taking the time to do the job right in the CBC. And I'm not just being self-serving here, but I really think that when I look at the colleagues I've worked with over many years, the production values of what we do, of trying to get it right on every single level, that comes through in all of the podcasts and all of that kind of thing, so that it, suddenly you can hear it elsewhere. When I was a kid on a Sunday afternoon, if I was in the car with my parents, there were a whole bunch of BBC shows. I'm sorry, I'll read that again. I'm really dating myself now. The Curse of the Hairy Wombat and all these crazy comedy shows. Do you know about these? Anyway,
no, the Curse of the Hairy Wombat's a totally different thing.
You've got to get there, yeah. But the point was, we had access to just a few little things that were hilarious. Right. And I'm the daughter of an immigrant, right? And it was also the English language and all of that. Well, now our shows can go out there everywhere. The debaters can be anywhere on the planet, and people can laugh at it. It's funnier than the Curse of the Hairy Wombat. So
I'm going to put that on our show poster.
but it is about that connection again, and throughout all that technology, you still have to get the story, you still have to tell the story, and you make the connection through your voice. And something as simple as a voice is, what do people do? They sing to babies. I mean, you put the voice matters. And we're still there.
C'est très important ce que Anna-Marie vient de dire.
What Anna-Marie just said is very important, the human voice. I think in the digital universe we have to distinguish between the future of radio, spoken radio, talk radio, and musical radio, or music radio. And the challenge that Rebecca is dealing with is even bigger than what we have on Radio 1 or at ici Radio-Canada Première, because a machine can't replace a voice. Human warmth, truth, authenticity, enthusiasm. An electronic machine can't replace that. But if I was the owner of a music station, like a top 40 station, the hit parade, I would be nervous if radio was only playing hits. Because the internet is a huge competitor. You can have access to music stations without advertising, without any host. We do it ourselves. That's what I was saying. That the content of
radio music
has to be complementary. On the radio, we have to go further than just talk about the news. We have to give it some meaning. And what you do on Espace Musique and on Radio 2 is amazing, because you're at the event, you add an added value. I think that's the only way we'll survive. Radio gives interviews, and it comes back to content, is what I was saying. It comes back to what the person in front of the microphone is saying. Just being a traffic cop between one song and another is not enough. What Ms. Tremonti said is interesting too, because we can't cannibalize content. There's so much out there. You can go to Espace.nu and listen to the 3 songs from so-and-so, and Rebecca, or you listen to interviews or excerpts from other programs. You just want to hear sound bites where people talk about, I don't know, about a prize won. So you have to be careful, because you can cannibalize, our content can be cannibalized by added value.
We're talking a lot about the competition that's out there now in the world of technology, and how you have to harness that competition and use it to enhance your product. But Matt, I want to ask you a crass question just about competition. You've got competition in this city, a whole bunch of it.
So I'm told.
And you are on the top of the heap, which is something that's worth celebrating. And I just wonder, when you look at that competition, that all want to be number one in this city, I mean, this is the city where you want to be number one. When you look at your position there, how do you explain why you have got there and the others are still struggling to get there?
It's a good question. I think one of the things that we do really well is something that I was just talking about, which is actually, and there's a tagline that's on some of the promos that we have, which is sounding like the city. It sounds obvious, but it's true. That in this city, if you, particularly if you're the public broadcaster, but if you're any broadcaster, if you can be on the subway or the streetcar and you see the United Nations there, and you don't see that represented in what you're broadcasting, then if you're the public broadcaster, you should be out of business, I think. If you are a private broadcaster, you need to worry about who your audience is. We represent the public, and the public is this huge, as I said, this huge swath And so what we, through a lot of work, and very deliberate work in terms of hiring, but also in terms of the story choices from the meetings that I was at this morning about what's going to be on the program in the days and weeks ahead, to the people that we have on, not the usual suspects in terms of guests, we really try and go out of our way to reflect what the city sounds like now. Not what the city sounded like 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, but what it sounds like now. And the best possible compliment is that you hear back from people who say, I was in a taxi with a driver during the Arab Spring. We were talking a lot about Egypt. He said, I would have never thought that the CBC would talk about Egypt, that this is my story, but it's actually your story and it's our story. And that means a lot, because it makes the we, in terms of what we are trying to do, much more inclusive. So we work really hard at trying to do that. We're lucky in that we're a commercial-free service. We're not selling you soap. We're not going to give you a plane ticket to Mexico. We're not going to try and drive you to a certain advertiser. And so audiences have this different relationship with you. We're not trying to drive them to anybody else. They're looking to us for content. And if we can get them, steal 5-10 minutes of their time and get them to listen a little bit more about the city or the world that they're in, it's incredibly rewarding when they do that, and when they do that in overwhelming ways. So it's a nice mix, but it's really a lot of hard work as well in trying to actually reflect the place that we're in right now.
Je pense qu'on peut poser la même question à Jean-Sébastien et Rebecca. Comment se hisse au sommet d'un marché comme celui de Montréal?
How do you get to the top of the market in Montreal? We follow Matt's example. Good idea. We want to be as good as he is. It's very clear. Something that Matt was saying, that you can't just choose the most obvious guests, the ones everyone thinks of. Why shouldn't we surprise people? And I don't mean we have to become a sort of a freak show. But, for instance, talking about Egypt on CBC Radio-Canada, somebody saying they couldn't believe that we were talking about it is incredible, and it's a good thing we're here, because we're in a very multicultural country, more than ever, so we have to do that. My new program, L'Heure du Monde, what I like about it is that I can count on the strength of the network. Since the beginning of the season, we've gone into communities from across the country, from the biggest to the smallest, and it's amazing what you hear, what comes out of these communities. It's very surprising. Sometimes you learn that what's happening in Montreal is also happening on a smaller scale in a city like Lloydminster, for instance, between Alberta and Saskatchewan. Then that Toronto has problems that are comparable to what's happening in Vancouver or even Montreal. We go into cultural communities, and one day we won't even talk anymore about cultural communities. We'll say we'll just go out into the population. Rebecca, what do you think? This is a real asset of the public broadcaster. We're broadcast from coast to coast. And it gives us a lot of wealth. The fact that we're broadcasting throughout the country and adapting to the specificities of each population group, each community. We offer more than a service. We have a responsibility to offer content which is more connected than what the company, others offer. And I think this is the key to our success. The only way to prosper is by saying things differently. As Matt said, it's work, but it's content. What can we do to talk to you about something you won't hear elsewhere, so that you'll tune in to us, because you're not going to tune in elsewhere. It's not necessarily on the web. What can we offer where people will find something unique?
What did you say?
It sounds like so much work, everything you're doing. You know, you get the feeling. But so that's why, Steve, I wanted to give you the last word on our panel, because your show doesn't sound like a lot of work.
That's fine. I'll take that. I can take that from him.
We have history,
he's
people.
Kelly.
We have
he's
history.
A Kelly. He's an Irish. He's a son of a. We actually are fortunate enough on Debaters to get to travel around with our show throughout Canada. We get to see that connection. We actually make a point of hiring local comedians, which might not otherwise get exposure to the rest of Canada, and talking about topics which I know it's not a news format that we give it, but we talk about topics that matter to places, different parts of Canada. We happen to make it funny, but there's always some facts in there, and that's the way that we connect, is we travel around. I'm very fortunate to have a radio show with a a live listening audience that's a theater in a town. And I think it's pretty worthwhile, Mark.
I love that line. And there's always some facts in there.
There's facts.
You just let the secret out.
There's fact stuff.
All right, well, listen, that wraps up this fantastic panel conversation. I'd like to thank you all for sharing your experience and insights with us. And before we begin answering the questions from the public, and this is the moment we had mentioned before, we are going to invite questions from the floor. You can see right now a microphone is being set up. We have been encouraging people to send us questions via email, Twitter. We are receiving those as we speak. I would like to invite the bosses back on stage in case you have, and I imagine you will, perhaps some questions for them. Okay. Let's start, actually, we've got, as I mentioned, we've got some questions that are coming in via email. So Anna Maria, we've got one for you. I'm trying to see where this one came from. So anyway, it is, what is the most fascinating interview, Anna Maria, you have done in the past 6 months?
Oh, Malala Yousafzai.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, you know, every once in a while you meet someone, I'm so lucky to meet so many people, but who just seems to be on another level. And I didn't know, we had heard about her, we'd actually put tape of her on the air before she was shot. And then, you know, before I read the book, I was wondering, okay, what's she like? Then I read the book, and it's a very, like, true to her voice book. It's an amazing story. And, you know, she has a dad who's very much advocating for all of this education, and you know, some call him a stage dad, but she also has a mind of her own. And after finishing talking to her, I really understood that. And when the cameras stopped rolling and we turned off the mics, I said to her, you know, Malala, I wonder if, you know, because she's a kid from the Swat Valley, remember, like this is very far away from the rest of the world. And I said, I wonder if, even if your father hadn't been such an advocate for education, even if you hadn't been so outspoken and this hadn't happened to you, that somewhere in your life you might have punched through and made a difference. And she looked at me, she's just a tiny little thing, she looks at me and she goes, perhaps when I was older. An amazing young woman, just amazing.
Avant de continuer un peu plus loin, il faut quand même rappeler que pour transmettre toute question relative à ce que vous venez d'entendre sur l'intention d'Hubert, de Rémi, de Suzanne, de nos
for Hubert, Rémi, Suzanne, or our personalities from CBC Radio-Canada, just fill in the section at the bottom of your screen. You can send us your questions by Twitter, hashtag RCAPA or hashtag CBCAPM in English, and we'll also take questions already submitted by video.
We did want to invite people to ask questions, and I can see that people are already lining up. That's fantastic. We may not be able to answer all the questions. We'll do our best to do that with the time that we have. We will answers to the most frequently asked questions will be posted on our corporate website later. You've got another email question.
Pour Rebecca, alors voici la question.
For Rebecca, here's a question. We see you on a number of platforms. You seem like the voice of the future. Is it by choice or did you ask for it? Is it realistic to think that all journalists can be as good on all platforms?
Was I chosen to be the voice of the future, Hubert?
Tantôt que tu étais la personne
la plus
multiplateforme.
I said you were the multi-platform
person.
I said that you were the multi-platform person. Thank you for asking the question.
Je dirais que c'est un concours de circonstances. En fait, moi, quand j'ai commencé à étudier le journalisme, j'ai un bac en journalisme à Concordia. Je voulais faire de la télé ou de la presse écrite. La radio, ça ne m'intéressait pas.
TV or the written press. I wasn't interested in radio at all.
C'est ridicule, mais je trouvais que c'était un peu ennuyant. Puis je trouvais comment on peut, en fait, raconter une histoire sans images. Écoutez,
I thought, how can you tell a story without any images?
I was just getting into university. Là, j'ai commencé à travailler à la Gazette.
Getting into university, I started working at the Gazette. In fact, I'm more of a TV girl. And it just happened by accident. I started hosting Studio 4 years ago. It was an idea that came from management to do this multi-platform show on TV, next day on the web, and this show was written on the radio. So I found myself everywhere at the same time. I wanted to talk about the generational challenge too.
Pour moi, la radio,
For me,
le 75e anniversaire, on parlait de
75th
nostalgie
anniversary of radio,
un petit peu
that's
plus tôt.
very
Moi, je suis pas une
nostalgic.
nostalgique par
But
rapport à la
I'm
radio.
not
Je
a
suis
nostalgic
nostalgique par
person
rapport à la
about
télé parce
radio.
que j'ai l'âge
I'm
que j'ai.
nostalgic about
Et c'est
TV
arrivé-
because
c'est
of my
arrivé comme ça. Je
age.
suis arrivée en
So
même temps que
that's
Twitter.
how it
Je me
happened.
suis-
I
je suis
arrived at
pas
the
du
same
tout
time as
Facebook, mais je suis
Twitter.
très Twitter, puis ça
I'm
fait en
not
sorte
really
que,
on Facebook, but I'm really on Twitter.
quand
And
j'anime,
so
soit à
when
la
I'm
télévision ou à la
hosting
radio,
something on
je
TV
m'arrange
or
pour
on the
tweeter dans
radio,
les pauses, à la
I'm
télé,
always tweeting
en
on
direct.
breaks, on
Ça,
TV
des fois, ça
and
impressionne les
live.
gens, mais voyons donc, tu fais du
Sometimes
contenu, mais
people are really impressed, but
girls can multitask also. Maybe that's what it is.
Girls
I don't
can
know.
multitask.
Mais je trouve que maintenant,
So,
quand on est
now,
journaliste,
when
hey,
you're a
girls,
journalist, though,
maintenant, quand
when
on
you're
est
a
journaliste,
reporter,
on n'a pas le choix, en fait.
you have no
Il faut
choice.
s'assurer,
You have to be sure.
peut-être pas d'être expert, mais
Maybe
d'essayer
not
de
to be an
maîtriser le
expert in
plus
everything,
possible,
but you have to
d'être
master as well as you can
multiplateforme,
all
vraiment
these platforms.
de pouvoir être
You have
aussi
to
habile à la télé qu'à la radio que
be
sur le
just
web.
as good on
C'est ce que je
TV,
souhaite, en tout cas,
radio,
aux
and the
journalistes.
web.
You go,
That's
girl.
what I.
You go.
That's what I
Wow.
hope for all the
Very
other
impressive.
journalists.
Okay, and I asked for your patience just for one more second. We do have video questions that were submitted, and this is one that's for Hubert, so I'd just like to throw to that video question now, please.
How come you don't have Hockey Night in Canada on cell phones available? I'd like to watch it on my smartphone.
Yeah, how come?
Yeah. Mark, do this again. He wants to
watch. He wants to watch Hockey Night in Canada on his smartphone, his cell phone.
Well, that's an easy one. We are actually streaming live Hockey Night in Canada on your computer, so you can watch us every Saturday evening. And if you go to your provider, your cell phone provider, we actually do the same thing. I think there's a paywall, though, depending on the provider, well, on all the providers, but we also do that on your cell phone. So we're happy in this first question, so it's an easy question, probably just a softball. Yeah, we do it right now.
We do it. He asked for it, boom, you delivered it like that. That's how we roll around here, people.
D'autres questions?
And on that note, let's go to the floor as everybody takes a deep breath. Yes, sir.
Broadening our conversations. CBC more than lives here. It literally saved my life one February morning when Pauline Dankin did her health report on Neurontin and Gaber Painton. My kids thank you. My wife thanks you. My community thanks you. Today back then I started the Institute for Canadian Justice. The Fifth Estate has done 2 associated pieces, and we've revealed Canada's largest governmental privacy breach in the course of doing this. You folks are beacons. You create that national dialogue, that tapestry. You are the thread to that tapestry that binds us all, and thank you so much for that. My question is this. In an emerging technologies, platforms, and demographics, and the democratic discourse considered, it is critical that online presence, the two-way conversation, is covered by the CBC Ombudsman. What good folks like I and others are finding is that when we do go online to comment, we are either being moderated to a degree that is unreasonable, or others are getting ahead of the queue and spewing all kinds of nastiness. That two-way dialogue is very, very critical to all of us, because in broadening those conversations, we have an amazing discourse. And if I may add, and end on this point, harness and enhance, as Matt said, this incredible discourse. More of these is a great way to start. And thank you, and please remember, my family thanks you so very much. Thank you.
I think, if I may, that, and it was very eloquent, thank you, that the heart of that, your question, though, was about the Ombudsman, and you're talking about just trying to, that you are being over-moderated as you try to get points to, is that the heart of your question? A yes or no would be great, just in interest of time. I'm not trying to cut you off. Thank you.
So moderation is always a question, particularly on the web. We have policies that deal with that. We try to ensure that the nastiness or the foul words are not shown. We don't post those. It's always a question of balance. When a person, let's go with the ombudsman position or the ombudsman role, when a person is not happy with the way we treated the story or what, as you know, you have the right to complain. The news department reacts to it. When you're still unhappy with the reaction or the answer of the news department, Then you have obviously a right to the ombudsman. The ombudsman is a position that reports directly to me. We take great pride in the work of the ombudsman because they are the conscience of the corporation. They also are a great way to show our transparency and our accountability. So yes, we understand moderation is always in the eye of the person that wanted the post and got his or her post deleted. We have policies for that. It's a constant conversation, and they will evolve as we see these mediums change.
Merci, Hubert. And in the spirit of moderation and just out of respect for people here, let's try to keep questions as brief as we can so that we can try to broaden our platform here to get more questions from the floor. So, sir, over to you.
Thank you very much. My name's Philip Savage, and I teach at McMaster University, where we have a new, I was going to say CBC radio station. We don't have any radio. That's another matter that we can investigate some other time, I hope. I want to thank you for having such a meeting and for, as Matt has mentioned and Hubert has mentioned, being so transparent. Your competitor down the road, Bell Media, doesn't have such events. In fact, rather than gathering questions from its users, it seems to be gathering information against our will. So I hope at some point Bell will also address some of these questions. My question is about Radio 2 and advertising. Matt said, we do what we do because we're not just sending people to advertisers. He used to work on Radio 2 a little bit. He doesn't work on Radio 2 anymore. In the interest of transparency, the CRTC has asked the CBC, first of all, to limit its advertising on Radio 2 beyond what it, or well below what it had actually planned. It also suggested that within 3 years you report on the impact on programming and the actual financials. In the interest of transparency, Monsieur Lacroix, and also our CFO sitting up here, would you be willing to have a public audited statement about the amount of revenue that is being generated through advertising on Radio 2? I won't speak to Espace Musique, perhaps for Espace Musique as well, that is made available at this public meeting in terms of the actual monies generated and also the cost of generating those revenues. Would you pledge to do that at the next annual public meeting? Thank you.
There's a lot in your question. Let me try to do this, and if Suzanne thinks I've forgotten something, she can chime in. We actually told the CRTC how many dollars we wanted. We wanted 8 minutes of advertising. We're just about gradually getting to 8 minutes. That would have given us about $20 million of contribution, between 20 and just a little more than 20. We got 4 minutes, so you can do the math. You can do the math. It's going to generate about $10 million, let's say between $7 or $10 million, a little less in the first year because we're late in starting it. It took us some time. We thought that the decision was going to come earlier. All that to say, we're looking at, or let's say around $10 million on a cruising speed, out of a $20 million target, 4 minutes an hour. We've started the ads on radio right now. And frankly, the tolerance and the engagement and the comments from the listening public has been okay.
And let me follow.
Say to Prime Minister Harper, you didn't answer the question. Will you provide on a yearly basis back to this public meeting an audited statement of the revenues you're generating through Radio 2 advertising?
Don't audit, sir, we'd be happy to give you the numbers. We don't audit particular streams of revenues. We have a $1.7 billion corporation. We have audited financial statements. We have quarterly MD&As. I'd be happy to, if you come back and you ask the question every year, I'll give you where we are with respect to the plan. And we actually report that to the CRTC. So there's no hiding this number. It's a contribution.
Reported after 3 years, but will you be reporting it on a yearly basis to the public, including the cost
of that? Sure. Again, there's no hiding of this number. We asked Radio 2 and Espace Musique to contribute to the challenges that we have on a financial level, and that's the plan.
And including the cost.
Sir, we've got a lot of questions. Just in fairness here, we've got a lot of questions. Another one that's coming on this, and while we're on the topic, this is from John Burkham in Montreal to Hubert. Will you guarantee there will never be advertising on CBC Radio 1 and Première Chaîne?
Did you guys ask the question, or did it come actually from somebody in Montreal? Is it your brother or your sister or your friend?
Yeah, it's John Burkham in air quotes, also known as Steve Patterson.
We told the CRTC there's no ads coming on Radio 1 sur notre radio parlée pour exactement les raisons que Jean-Sébastien a discuté il y a quelques minutes. Parce que la richesse du contenu de la langue de notre radio parlée
richness of our talk radio content
est différente.
Is very different. It's very different. This relationship has to continue.
C'est pour ça qu'on a choisi de le
and
faire
that's why we decided
radio musicale,
to do it on the musical stations. We have no intention of putting advertising on Ici Radio-Canada Première or
Steve,
Radio
a question
1.
to you from Jason in Edmonton. Comedy can be a very visual art. So why do you think a show like The Debaters works just as well in front of a live audience as it does on the radio?
Well, Hubert's been to tapings. It's actually a little spicier in front of the live audience than makes it to the radio. But we keep as much as we can. But it's a great event to come out to. That's what we've made it, is an event to come out to the taping of. And that probably didn't answer the question.
It didn't.
Just practicing for being a politician. I have to do the play-by-play, so it's taught me a different muscle of actually having to sort of explain the visuals of comedy and add little nuances with words, and it's actually made me a better comic for it. So.
And sometimes you feel you have to cut people off?
Sometimes
Thanks, Steve.
I do
That's
feel,
good.
Oh,
okay,
Kelly!
So,
Kelly!
let's go to this young lady on the floor.
Just 1 sec. I want to say something about the Debaters. Yes, I've been to a number of tapings, and it is true. The subject matters that are presented for debate actually come from what was in the paper last week. They give it a twist, but there's a true or false. There's does it make sense or not? And when they went to Bishops, there was a very important conversation about French and about French in Canada and some of the challenges that were going there. And it was debated in a very funny way, but the substance was extremely serious and well chosen.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes. Thank you.
Please.
Hi, my name's Katie. I'm a fourth-year RTA Radio and Television Arts student at Ryerson, hoping to one day end up here. My question for you is, as an advocate of getting people in my generation to listen to public radio, listen to the music that we play, just because everything here is so great, what do you guys plan on doing to attract a younger audience? Because sometimes it does seem like the senior network.
Ouch. Give it to Rebecca. She's young.
This is
this is the face of it. J'allais répondre en anglais. Do you want me to answer? Maybe it's easier if I answer in English because you don't have your. I was going to say it comes down to a lot of the hosts are doing their own thing. I keep talking about Twitter, and I guess by now you're fed up of it. But to me, it really helped in, I think, you know how artists, they go on the road and they say, I gained my public one person at a time. I went on the road and I played my songs all across the country. And I really have a feeling that that's what I'm doing. Every day somebody on Twitter says, I didn't even know you were on the radio. I remember you from that TV show. Since when have you been on? Since about a year and a half. Wow, this is cool. And it's like one person will tell another person, will tell another person, will tell another person. I also think that the CBC has to understand that it will need to, I guess, revitalize also their hosts, because at some point all the hosts that like, let's say, how can I say, oh man, I'm treading on thin water, you understand what I'm saying? Non, mais il y a une nouvelle génération d'animateurs, évidemment, people like you here one day are going to be standing here, and at some point we're going to be, dead. So that's well said, isn't it?
It's that classic French romanticism we've been doing. I thought it was l'amour, not l'amour. Get it? It's love and death.
So funny. No, mais it's also your job to go and there you go.
Okay, so she passed it over to me. Let me help you also with this conversation, because are you happy that I did? Strategic planning. Our chairman, in his opening remarks, alluded to it. It's a very, very important part of what we're doing right now. We're in the middle of something called Strategy 2015, which obviously, because of its name, lands in 2015. But at one point in time, we are not going to stop and then say, all right, what's next? We are deep into the beyond 2015 strategic direction of the CBC and Radio-Canada. One of the things that we're looking at is obviously the 18 to 34 crowd, where I think that we have a blind spot. We need to better understand that those listeners, what they do, their consumption habits, and we're working very hard at it. So
and how to reach them.
And obviously, and how to reach them. We don't have the dollars to create the platforms, but we want to be on those platforms, so partnerships are very important in our lives. So the reach and trying to be relevant for you in the 18 to 34 range is much more than simply trying to figure out a particular program. It's about how can we create, and here we go again, this one-on-one relationship with you, so that it might not start with a television program. It might not come from listening to one of the podcasts. It might actually be you finding out on YouTube of a podcast of a cue. Let's say you watch Gian on YouTube, and then all of a sudden you said, that's interesting, and then you're going to find another way into the website, and then you're going to find something else about CBC Radio-Canada. So this is our challenge.
It's pretty much what I said. Right?
You know, Hubert, you mentioned that there's something ubiquitous about Gian Gomeshi. He's on TV, he's on radio. It's almost like he's in this room now. Welcome, Gian. Okay, so we have, I hate to be the timekeeper, but that is part of my job here. We've got about 4 minutes left. We're going to try to squeeze in a few more questions. Why don't we, I know we've got some online, but sir, you're being patient, so let's take a question,
My
please.
name is Clinton Green. Mine is a panel. Mine is a statement, not a question.
A short one, I hope.
We're showing you the power of radio and freedom of listeners. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Matthew. Happy birthday to you.
Amazing voice.
I love that.
That was easy.
Great thing about radio is people can't see you when you blush. Thank you, sir.
It was very generous, and you've got great pipes, too.
Oh, yeah.
You may want to drop off a CV on your way out here. This is radio. Okay, let's quickly take one from online here. Arzu Suleiman. This is who sent this, and it's for Matt, the birthday boy. What are the characteristics of a good radio host?
The characteristics of a good radio host?
Correct.
Listening. I have a piece of paper that's on my desk in front of my microphone, and it says, "Stop talking." It's not always successful, but I think you have to listen, and you have to be curious, and you have to wonder if somebody is saying something, why they're saying something, and what the motivation is for them to come into a room and talk to a stranger like me to an audience of 1 million people in a city. Why would they want to do that, and what is in it for them? And if you can listen, and if you can get at the core of what it is that they're saying, or if it's often with a politician, what they're not saying, it will transmit a lot. So for me, it's just listening.
Oh, sorry, were you saying something?
Thank you.
Sir.
Yes, my name is Saeed, and Matt was saying people listen to his show to improve their English. I would say they are at very higher level of English because there are lots of other people that I know which need much more help into getting integrated and listening to CBC as the mainstream listenership does it. So my question is why we are not using the new technology to address that segment of listeners, why we don't have a special news bulletin which is using much limited vocabulary and giving more background on the stories, why we are not talking about the Canadian culture, history on shows that are specifically produced for the newcomers.
We have Radio-Canada International, RCI, that completely revamped its presence. If you go to the website, for example, and you see we broadcast in 5 different languages. And we changed it for exactly that reason. We used to invest dollars, and yes, it came as a result of asking ourselves in the context of cuts whether Radio-Canada International was still a relevant voice out there. It was broadcasting to the world. We said, all right, let's now focus our attention on the people that are in Canada or wanting to come to Canada and they want to understand our country. So can I suggest that you go to Radio-Canada International, and I think that you will get a lot of what you are referring to.
Je voudrais juste ajouter quelque chose. J'ai travaillé 3 ans à Saskatchewan. Et j'ai été frappé par le nombre d'anglophones qui écoutaient la radio française.
Allophones who listen to French language radio exactly for that reason.
To learn English, but pour apprendre le français.
To learn French.
Et là aussi, on se faisait dire aussi, parler du background du Canada, de l'histoire, parler un peu plus lentement pour qu'on vous suive. Mais ils nous écoutaient aussi. Il faut retenir aussi que la radio française, c'est pas la radio des francophones, c'est le service public de langue française.
It's the public French language radio service. And we do that in Toronto too. Yes, exactly. Now, a question from Hubert. From Jean Sauvé in Windsor. How can you guarantee that the leaders of Radio-Canada will protect the regions when you can clearly see the Montrealization of programs, the offering, the Montrealization of the radio? That's not true. I understand the perception that certain people might have of this danger. I heard this. I was before the CRTC in November 2012, and many Canadians said they wanted to see more history throughout Canada on the radio, on our services. And the French services under said we have radio news programs 7 days a week. We have variety shows like Un Air de Famille. 20 families are there. They're from throughout Canada. So not only in the news, but also in the variety shows, you're seeing Canada. And there's the news program with sit-in at 10 p.m. We added 2 journalists, one in Edmonton and one in Moncton, to add to the news program and to talk about Canadian history. Even on Espace Musique, we have hosts throughout the country. I was talking about Sudbury earlier on. There's one in Gatineau, in Vancouver, in Quebec City. We've taken Espace Musique and we've regionalized it so that you can hear Espace Musique and hear the reality, the situation of various communities. And L'Heure du Monde, that's exactly what we're trying to do on that program too. And I'd just like to mention, yes, I am in Montreal. But I don't say it because I don't see myself as a Montreal host when I'm on L'Heure du Monde. I'm there for the world. I have colleagues who give reports on Montreal, and I can say, well, he's talking about Montreal, but I don't say I'm in Montreal. When I'm in Edmonton, I'm an Edmonton host. When I'm in Quebec City, I'm a Quebec City host. And Chicoutimi host when I'm in Chicoutimi. I understand the concerns of this gentleman. It's something that we've been criticized for, and we have to be constantly on the watch and ensure that
time is ticking.
To make sure the message we're giving
in my ear
to
is
our
humming,
listeners.
So, which means the people who are running the show are telling me. We've got one last question, and I apologize to the 2 people there from the floor. Please.
Just a comment. My name's Amanda Martinez. I'm a singer here in Toronto. Grew up with CBC, and I wanted to say thank you for all the support that you give artists whose music would not necessarily be on any other station. I feel personally indebted for my career here, and I know that I wouldn't have that. And on behalf of artists, I hope you continue to promote the diverse music that we have in the city. Thank you so much.
Well, that's the mandate. When we talk about the mandate of our musical radios, the Espace Musique and the Radio 2, that's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Hubert, I'm sure I'll let you handle this one. This is from Ron Devian in Brentwood Bay, BC. Hubert, what progress is being made on the Hockey Night in Canada negotiations with Gary Bettman?
Actually, that's one for Steve.
I'll take that one.
Yes. Hockey Night in Canada, you heard Suzanne a few minutes ago, key to our brand, important. We think we connect Canadians together on Saturday nights. It's been 61 years. We've been negotiating with the NHL through the leadership of Neil McEnany and Jeffrey Orridge. Conversations are ongoing, and we hope to hear in the near future of how they will conclude.
On a le temps de prendre une question, celle-ci de Bernard de Montréal. Elle est destinée à Jean-Sébastien. Jean-Sébastien, vous avez parlé des opportunités par rapport à l'engagement, participation dans les réseaux sociaux,
get engaged and commit and on social media. And I also want to hear about risks. I understand that there are risks associated with social media. There are cases, says Jean-Sébastien, there are cases where we had colleagues who had to apologize after having spoken out on social media.
Peut-être que les médias sociaux, c'est un micro, c'est une caméra, c'est une tribune publique.
It's a public tribunal. Tribune, rather. And I think Hubert would agree with me, as would my other colleagues. One of the things we're very proud of at Radio-Canada CBC is our journalistic standards. So the risk for the journalist or the reporter is to remember that when he's on social media, Facebook and Twitter, he has to, or she has to, behave as if they were in front of the camera. We're not there to defend an editorial point of view or our personal point of view when we have one. I just wanted to mention something. People say, how do you hide your opinion? A host quite often sees that life is in tones of gray. Often we don't have an opinion because we hear so many versions of the same story and so many different points of view, and we're open to all of it. So we forget sometimes that we have to make our own opinion. The risk I also see,
on peut se faire entraîner
you can be
dans une
led
escalade. On appelle ça des tweet fights.
into tweet fights, or you can be.
Il y a le risque
There's a risk to get involved in a fight, and we have to be careful about that too. But I'd like to end by saying that I'm not totally comfortable yet, I admit, with the idea of allowing people to comment on the news constantly, because sometimes we try to moderate things, but you know, sometimes it goes off track.
Je me demande
so I'm
si on a besoin d'aller jusque-là. Un blog, c'est nécessaire. On veut amorcer une conversation.
Need to go that far. Yes, blogs are necessary. It's good to start a conversation, but
il y a des risques. Je peux pas résumer toutes les situations possibles.
I can't talk about all the possible situations, but we have to be very careful.
Quand on passe par l'ombudsman pour faire un commentaire, le danger avec Twitter aussi, c'est qu'on peut interpeller l'animateur directement.
You can speak directly to the host. This is great because the conversation is very personal, but when you're insulted, for instance, or when you get into a tweet fight, then things can get very difficult.
I just got a very important tweet. #We'reDone. I'd like to thank you all for your participation here.